Well, welcome everybody. I'm glad to see y'all here this morning. My name is Todd Allen. I'm the lead pastor here at Sarasota Christian Church. We're really glad to be hosting today and getting to be a part of this foster and adoption symposium. For those of you who maybe aren't a part of church or this isn't something that you make a regular thing for you, we believe in a God who has a care for the lost, the broken, the hurting, and so we love y'all. We love what you're doing. We're so glad to get to partner with you in today and hopefully learn more about your organizations on an ongoing basis. And for those who are here to learn and here to hear about just some of the resources available, we're just so glad that you're here joining us this morning. So I'm going to say a prayer and ask that God would bless our time together and that we would just that we would be able to have just a good time learning and sharing and hearing about all these great opportunities that are available here in our community. If you'd bow your heads with me. God, we give you thanks, Lord. We give you thanks for a new day that you've given us, and the sun is shining, and God, the air is warmer than where I'm from in Indiana, and God, we're thankful. We're very thankful. And God, we're thankful for this time and this opportunity to get to hear more about the work that is going on in our city, Lord, to care for our kids. And they are our kids, Lord, right here who are a part of our community. And Lord God, we know that you love them. And God, we know that you want to see them get to experience that love, Lord, in their family environments, in the homes that they go to each day. And so, God, we're so grateful for these organizations that we're going to hear from and about. Lord, pray that you would just help make the right connections that are needed, that can best serve these kids and these families, and God, that it would really, it would truly be just a great opportunity to see kids loved here in Sarasota, Lord. We thank you and we love you and pray for just a really good time of learning and growing together this morning. And we ask these things in your name, Lord Jesus. Amen. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Jody, who's going to lead us through today.
Thank you so much. Well, I'm glad that you're here. These aren't always big groups, but they're always impactful, and we know that the right people are here at the right time, and we have an opportunity to video today as well, and then to be able to share that with some other people who maybe couldn't make it this morning. So we're just going to go ahead and go through this morning some different things that some different agencies will come up and share about what they do specifically, because I think in the world of child welfare, it can be big and scary, and it can feel like this issue that, like, what can I do? And so we hope that you leave today with more awareness of what different agencies are doing and the part that you can play. It could be that you walk out of here and you say, you know what, I've got some clothing that I can donate, or I have an hour or two a month of my time that I can volunteer, or I'm ready to take the next step to open my home to become a foster and adoptive parent. And so we have opportunities that are just baby steps, and if you're ready to jump into the deep end of the pool, you'll hear about that as well. But I want to spend a little bit of time just talking about what our circuit is and some of the things that are happening in child welfare. And so you can get just a little bit of kind of the big picture of the 12th Circuit. And when we talk about the 12th Circuit, that's Sarasota, Manatee, and DeSoto counties. And those are the counties that are grouped together in Florida. And so when I talk about our local area, that's what we're talking about. But the first statistic that you'll see up there is the number of children in the 12th Circuit who have been removed from their homes over the past 12 months. And that's 724, which again can feel like a really big number. When we talk about kids who have been removed, the process, what happens there is abuse or neglect is suspected, and somebody places a call. There's a hotline that you can call if you ever feel like there's something that's just not quite right about a story or a mark on a child or something's not checking out. I think the first thing that it's good to be aware of is that every single person has the power to place a call. That doesn't mean that you know that abuse or neglect has happened. You're not the one that has to decide that, thank goodness, right? It just means that something feels off to you or something was reported to you, and you would feel better to know that someone's going to check in on that kiddo. So an abuse or neglect call comes into the hotline, and a child protection investigator goes out to the home and checks out the situation, makes sure that all the child's needs are being met, they're being cared for in an appropriate way. And so the child protection investigator really is the one who gets to decide whether that home is safe enough for the kiddo to stay there. When it's not safe enough, that's when you hear about removals, and that's the number that you see. So those are calls that came in. A child protection investigator went to the home. They decided at that time it wasn't safe enough, and so those children needed to be removed. Then what happens is a case plan is put into place, and the reasons for removal are addressed specifically. So if there was a substance abuse issue, a regular abuse issue, there wasn't enough food in the home, whatever the situation was, a case plan is put into place then so that that family can start to work towards reunification. And we'll talk a lot about reunification today. That foster care, the goal of foster care is always to reunify initially. The goal is always to reunify the child with the family. When we break those numbers down a little bit more, the next slide, you'll see that out of those 724, 218 of those removals were in Sarasota County, 436 in Manatee, and 70 in DeSoto. When we talk about out-of-home care, what does that mean? So let's say that the child protection investigator goes in, they decide that the home is not safe enough, the child is removed. What they do first is they try to find a family member or a family friend, someone who's known to the child that can care for them appropriately. So that could be a grandma, it could be an aunt, it could be a teacher or a neighbor. So if you think about how traumatizing that would be to an infant or an elementary age child or a teenager to be removed from their family and then to be placed with a complete stranger, that just adds trauma to trauma. So we try to not do that. We try to make sure that if there is a removal, that the child is placed with someone who's familiar to them and they already have a relationship with. So that's where you'll see the breakdown of what does it mean when we say out-of-home care. So 35% of those kids are going into a licensed foster home. That's what we think about when we think about foster care. That's someone who's not known to the child, who has been trained as a professional parent to be able to provide the best care possible. There's also kinship care, a non-relative placement, which would be like a teacher or maybe even someone from the church. 8% end up in a group home or a shelter, which those a lot of times are shift staff. So it's someone who's coming in, they're punching a clock, they're caring for kids for an 8 or 12-hour period, and then they're going home. So you can imagine that that's not the best situation. We like kids, when at all possible, to be in a home to be able to experience what it's like to be part of a healthy and functioning family. And then there's some others, which, Alan, I'll have to defer to you later about like what that other looks like. But the total number of kids right now in out-of-home care, so one of those 5 categories that we just talked about in the 12th Circuit, is 1,043. I've been doing my job with Bridge Life for about 5 years now, and it seems like that number of kids in out-of-home care is always right between like 1,000 and 1,500 is kind of the fluctuation. I failed to mention earlier the number of removals in Manatee County we mentioned was 436. And there have been times in the very recent history of our state that Manatee County has actually led the number of removals in the state. So if you've tuned in the news, you know that a lot of drug issues have surfaced, and so of course a lot of times when we see removals, there's a chemical or substance dependency issue that results in the reason that the child is being removed. And in Manatee County, unfortunately, we've been hit really hard with that in the last few years. So I did mention that when a removal happens, the goal is always reunification. So that case plan becomes really important. Parents are equipped with case managers and other support agencies that help them develop the tools and strategies that they need to be able to get their child back home. And so we really want to emphasize that home is best. When we think about the way that God made families and the importance of children being with their birth parents, even if it's not a situation that we would say we would parent that exact same way, if we can get that home safe enough, it is so, so, so important that those kids be able to be reunified with their birth family. And, as a person of faith, when I open up the Bible, I see all kinds of dysfunctional family situations, right? Like if you know any kind of Bible story, you'll know that there are lots and lots of them where it's like, wow, that is really messed up. And in some way, God moves to restore the family and to bring healing and peace to that family. And so for me, that part is really important. It's like, let's let God move in a way that like he would get the glory in the situation of this family, because we see where they came from. We've come alongside, we've provided support and prayer and community, and we've been able to get these parents and kids back together. So with that, I'm really excited to say that in our circuit, we have a faith-based licensing agency. And Alan, do you want to come on up? Alan with One More Child is with us today, and they do faith-based foster care, basically. Yeah, licensing from a Christ-based perspective. So Alan, welcome. I'm glad you got the high stool.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us just a little bit about you and what One More Child does?
My name is Alan Andrews, and I'm the director for foster care for One More Child. As Jody mentioned, we are a faith-based licensing agency. We license all across the state, but here in Circuit 12, we license and recruit, train, and then actually place children in Christian foster homes. So the area that we meet is working with the faith community. Each licensing agency in our area kind of has their wheelhouse, kind of like their specialty of either types of families they recruit or recruiting kids or families for certain types of kids. Our area just happens to be the faith community. So we also, for families that are interested in licensing for medical or therapeutic children, or maybe a family's not a family of faith, we also can make referrals to how they can be licensed through those other agencies. But really our area is working in the faith community, and so we really focus on trying to provide a very high level of care for our kids. We take a lot of pride in the homes that we train and license, and then we work very hard to support our families very well. Child welfare is challenging and difficult, so we do our best to make sure families feel supported and that they're supported and helped through the process. We help them navigate the process of working with children in the dependency system.
So what would you say is one of your biggest challenges or your biggest needs? Like if somebody wanted to learn more today or to get involved, what would that look like?
So really our biggest need right now is we're dealing with a capacity crisis across our circuit. We very rarely have any open space in our homes. Last year, we ran at 96% capacity. So that gives you an idea of how few of our homes are sitting empty. Many of our homes are sitting on waiver, where they actually have more children in the home than they're licensed for, sometimes long-term, sometimes on a temporary basis. But really, for the past 3 years I've been here, child welfare has functioned almost on a survival kind of method, just because we're not, most of the time, most of our children, as you saw, there were a disproportionate number of children removed in Manatee County. A lot of those kids don't stay in Manatee County. They're placed here in Sarasota County, when ideally we would like to keep children in their community, keep them in their schools, but we're just at a capacity crisis. So really at this point, we always have high need for people who are willing to take sibling groups, so that we're not having to separate siblings, which siblings coming into care, the vast majority of the time, are separated. And we also need people willing to take older children. We typically are able to place our babies and our little guys a little bit easier, but some of our older kids, elementary age kids, maybe some kids with some certain abuse histories are particularly difficult to place. So it's just really a capacity issue. We need more foster homes meeting all the needs of the children. The need is so broad. There's really no segment of our foster community that isn't in need of more homes.
So the way that it works is if a child comes into care, there's a list of, licensed foster families. So like I mentioned, they try to place the child with someone who's known to them. And then when that can't happen, my understanding is that a placement person just kind of looks at the top of the list and basically just starts calling down to see, can you take this child? Here's some information about them. And I heard it kind of a dream one time that wouldn't it be awesome if we had so many foster families that we kind of flipped the script and we were able to go to a child who had been removed and say, hey, we've got 5 families that want you. This one has a dog. This one has, two sons and a daughter already. And just to give that child a little bit of dignity and choice over where they get to go. And unfortunately, where we're at, you're saying it's a capacity crisis. So there's not a lot of options. But I just love that idea that someday we could have enough foster families that in the midst of a really horrible situation for a child, there would be a little bit of hope and choice and power over where they ended up. So what makes a good foster parent? What kind of person are you looking for? Can you be young, old?
Right. So I always tell people when they're looking at fostering not to disqualify yourself without talking with us. Some people say, well, I'm single. I don't think I can foster. Some of our single foster parents are doing things that are amazing. They're taking in kids that would be a challenge in a home with other children. Some people say I think we're too old to foster. One of our best foster parents in the past couple of years is a couple that's in their 60s, and they've just finished adopting 2 teens, and they're doing amazing things. Like, they are just pouring love into these kids. So really, we're not looking for a specific age, or there's not really a segment we're looking for. I always tell people, find your niche in foster care. What is a need that you can meet that maybe somebody else can't meet? Maybe you're done with diapers. Well, that's fine. I have families that'll take kids with diapers, but maybe you could take in that teen girl that's maybe she's a teen mom and she needs someone to invest in her. Maybe that would be your niche. Maybe your niche would be sibling groups or children that maybe have higher needs, autism. And so really it's just a commitment to children is what we're looking for. And then of course there are state requirements. There have to have stable income, stable housing. We have to have positive references. You have to pass a background check. And then even in the background check issue, a lot of people say, well, I wouldn't qualify because I have something in my background. Again, let's talk about that, because there are a lot of things that we have a number of families that, I have, a lot of times they have, a tough upbringing or childhood, and maybe there's some things in their background. But there's been a time in their life where a lot of times our families being faith families, I say they were pre-Jesus and pre-married. And so maybe when they met their spouse and got active in church, there was a turnaround in their life. And so a lot of those folks actually become amazing foster parents because they were where the children, they know where the children come from. They can empathize with them. So any of those things that you think might be disqualifier, just ask us before you automatically assume it's a disqualifier. And then there are some situations where people aren't a good fit, and then that's where we say, well, why don't you look at serving in another way? So I feel like anytime someone feels called to serve, we can find a way. We can find a place where it's appropriate and where it's a good fit. We want people to be successful in foster care, successful if they're moving towards adoption. Whatever they're in, we want them to be successful. And sometimes it's just a matter of gathering information. Maybe you feel this call. You feel like I feel called to do this. But then as you explore, you realize, really, this is how I can meet that need. So we really want to point people in that right direction.
Yeah, that's great advice. And that's one of the partnership aspects I love is if you get a family who maybe you walk them partway through the process and they decide maybe fostering isn't right for me right now, but they still want to help, then you can refer to Bridge Life and we can plug them in to support families. So I know there are a lot of tough stories out there, but I know you have some good ones too. Can you share with us just maybe a win?
I do. I'll share with you a short story. Foster care, I'll be honest with you guys, it's messy. Like on its best days, it's messy. But the rewards are there. Like the reason why I always encourage people that when we do have those struggles in foster care, let that encourage you to fight even more for these children. Because if we're not advocating for these children, they're left alone. They don't have an adult that's willing to go the extra mile for them. So I feel like in foster care, we need to be the ones willing to kind of take on that burden of the messiness and the brokenness of their lives and of everything around them, so the children don't have to endure that. We can provide some kind of peace and calm. And we recently had one family. They don't have children of their own. They came into fostering and just really eager and excited about it. They licensed for one, and as so often happens, a sibling group came in. And so we called the family. The sibling group would be appropriate in the home, and so we called and asked them, well, would you consider a sibling group? And they said yes, and they took these children to their home. And so not only were they first-time foster parents, they were first-time parents, and they jumped right in with two small children. And the family, through the process, they poured into these kids. They realized these kids had some behavioral issues. They were very behind developmentally. They needed some therapies. They needed a lot. They needed a lot of support and need to be poured into. This family poured into these kids. But not only did they pour into these kids, but they poured into their parents. The parents had made some mistakes and needed some help, needed to be taught how to be parents. And so they facilitated extra visitations and brought the parents in for doctor's visits and really did what we call co-parenting, worked very well with these parents. Then when the children went home, these children go home to their biological family now with two sets of parents that love them. These families still get together for holidays, and when the biological parents have struggles and maybe even moving towards crisis mode again, they can call up this family and they have that support there where this family can continue to support them. And that's really, I wish every story in foster care was that way. I wish it 100% were that way. But when we do see that, it gives us hope that there can be restoration brought to these families. There can be families made whole. There can be families that are able to increase their capacity to care for their children. Our goal is not to remove children from their homes. Our goal is to restore those families and for parents to be able to provide for their children, to maintain that biological contact, that biological family that's so important. And so we do get to see that from time to time, and we celebrate it when we do.
That's great. That's a good one. Well, I know for a lot of people, it's like, that's a great story. Reunification would be hard for me to support. And what I'm really interested in is adoption. And so I want to ask Angela to come up and share with us. She's from A Bond of Love, and she can share a little bit about what A Bond of Love is, what you do, and how it's maybe different than some of what we've already been talking about with foster care and reunification.
Hi, my name is Angela, and I am the executive director for A Bond of Love Adoption Agency. We are the private side of adoption. We've been in existence since 1992, and we were founded by adoption attorney Susan Stockham, who is sitting right there. And so the private side of adoption is a little bit different. We are working with young women who have decided that adoption is the best option for their baby. So we're doing essentially newborn placements. So pregnant women are coming to us. They've considered all of their options, and they've decided that adoption is the best thing for their baby. We provide adoption home studies for prospective adoptive families. We provide counseling for those families. We provide counseling for the birth families as well. We do reunification services, so not just with those people who have placed a child through A Bond of Love, but if anybody wants to look for birth family or adopt, they've been adopted and they want to look for anyone in the birth family, we can help them with that as well. So we work with young women in Port Charlotte, Fort Myers, Venice, Northport, Sarasota, Manatee, and so we kind of do that, West Coast area there. We also have 2 satellite offices in the Panhandle, and we have a contract worker in that area who provides home study services up there and can work with birth parents and provide services to those families.
That's great. So could you tell us a little bit about, other than, so it's infant primarily, whereas, we talked about reunification and that being the goal of foster care, but sometimes that doesn't happen. And so we do hear about adoptions that happen from not necessarily foster care, but the dependency system. So other than the age of the child, maybe what are some of the other differences that you see between a dependency adoption and a private adoption?
Gosh, that's a really, really good question. In private adoption, it's a voluntary plan. So there's no removal of a child. They are voluntarily saying, I know that adoption is best for my child. I'm voluntarily relinquishing my rights. That gives them also the ability to actually choose the adoptive family that they want to adopt the child. So we have families that are home study ready, and so they have the ability to choose that family, meet that family, stay in contact with that family after placement, so they'll know how their child is doing through the years. Oftentimes in dependency cases, that's not the case. The parents' rights are involuntarily terminated, and they really don't have a say where their child goes. They won't know how the child is doing through the years. So that's one of the main differences with private adoption.
Right, and then in dependency adoptions, so let's say the child's in foster care, they're not able to successfully work a case plan, and the goal is changed to adoption. A lot of times the kids will be older. We see a lot of special needs, which could be physical or mental disabilities, but it could also just be that the child is 8 years old or older, I think is what qualifies as special needs. If they're a part of a minority group or if they're part of a sibling group, that's considered special needs as well. And so you start to see that the pool of children who are available is different. So, like Alan said, there might be somebody who's like, I'm done with diapers. Like I've done that part of parenting. I don't want to go back there. But, I think I could do really well with teens. And so there are situations where a teenager even is free and clear for adoption. And so, you could talk about the possibility of adding to your family that way as well. And then I do feel like it's worth mentioning that dependency adoptions are funded by the state, so there are no fees. So you talked about those disqualifiers earlier. A lot of people say, I can't afford adoption, it's too expensive. Dependency adoptions are free. And then what would you say to someone who says, I really want a private infant adoption, but it's costly?
Yeah, I know for a lot of families that is an issue. And so we just encourage people to call and talk with us because there's a lot of grant money available for these families. The grant money may not be available to a Bond of Love as an agency, but it's available to these families. And so we can help them with that process of applying for these grants. There is a lot of paperwork involved, and it's very time-consuming, to do the work for the grants, but it is well worth it. And as families are waiting to be matched, it's a great way to kind of prepare for your adoption, is to prepare for these grants. But there is help available, so we really want to encourage people to say, don't give up on infant adoption, on private adoption, whether you're adopting through an attorney or an agency. There are funds available. And don't let that scare you.
Right, and it's just a different way to anticipate a baby and to kind of labor and nest.
That's a good way to put it. Absolutely. And also just, you were talking about older children. As a licensed child placing agency, we do have the ability to place older children as well. And it does happen. It doesn't happen very often. So we did do a sibling group, a 2 and 3 year old last year, and a 3-month-old. So we can do older placements as well. So sometimes there are young ladies who may have kids in the system already, and their rights have not been terminated yet. Maybe, I know in Manatee County, they have a pre-intervention program there where CPS does get involved, but they don't remove the child. So maybe the court system hasn't been involved yet. They can, if they choose, they can make a voluntary plan and choose the adoptive family and learn about know about the children through the years.
Right. So just real quickly, do you have any, like a great story to share?
Well, we have seen all kinds of things, of course, over the years. But one thing that really comes to mind is a story in which a young lady called us on a Friday. She had delivered her baby at her parents' home by herself. She had to go to work that morning and had taken the baby to work with her to open up the business where she was working, called us and said, I didn't tell anybody that I delivered or that I was pregnant, and I have this baby and I don't know what to do. Can I bring the baby in to a Bond of Love? And she did, and it was a little overwhelming. Baby's cord was still attached and all of that, and baby was just wrapped in a little blanket. And we were able to get that baby in immediately to see Dr. Ted Meyer here in town. And he, of course, immediately looked the baby over, sent the baby over to Sarasota Memorial. and so the baby could be observed. And so we just at that point just sat with her and said, now just take a deep breath. I know you think adoption is the best thing at this time. You're scared, you're overwhelmed, you've not shared with anybody that you were pregnant or that you had this baby, and I know you're scared to tell your family, but this is your time to just take a deep breath and think about sharing. You know, we just kind of gently encouraged her to share with her parents that she had this baby. We know she'd just been through a lot of trauma, so she did. She shared with her folks. They had the opposite reaction of what she was expecting, and they wrapped their arms around her and said, we love you. We're sorry you've gone through this by yourself. We will support you in whatever it is that you want to do. If you want to parent, we will be right alongside you. And she decided to parent. So there are a lot of young women, a lot of people that come in that we help that maybe never choose to place their child for adoption, but we can help them and give them resources, or a lot of prospective adoptive families that call and get information and may end up coming your way. So there's a lot of work that's done outside of that actual adoption work.
And I love that perspective too, because I think a lot of times in adoption we focus solely on the family who gets the baby, and isn't it great? And it's such a joy and to be celebrated. But there's this whole other side of the coin that, I mean, there's a lot of restorative work that needs to be done and a lot of healing, and, you know, that's not a decision that's taken lightly on behalf of the, you know, the birth parents. And so that's a great one. Thanks so much for sharing. We're going to switch gears a little bit, and I'm going to call Joel up here from the Guardian Ad Litem. So we've heard about fostering, we've heard about adopting, and those are huge commitments. That's like in your space, in your face, 24/7, you know, that's a big one. So maybe you're like, I need a step down. So Joel, tell us a little bit about the Guardian Ad Litem program. Still a big responsibility and a chance to impact families, but not having a child in your home.
Okay. Yeah, my name is Joel Horns. I am the recruiter for the Guardian Ad Litem program here in the 12th Circuit, and what we do is we represent children in the court system who have been abused and neglected by their parent or guardian. So what you would do is be a mentor, a friend, someone these children can turn to share their most most intimate secrets with, and you would share that information to the judge in court. Okay, so what we're doing is we want to make sure that these children have mentors, have people that they can turn to, so they can relay information, the accurate information, to the judge, so we can make sure that they're placed in the proper places.
All right, so a Guardian Ad Litem is a volunteer court-appointed representative who basically they're there just to say, hey, I'm on the child's side,
Right.
And I'm going to represent in court so that the child is well represented.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, you know, and unique thing about Guardian Ad Litem is, you know, you do the smallest detailed things and they make such a big difference. I can tell you, you spend about 10 to 15 hours a month of your time. It's about a 2-year commitment. And you only visit the child once a month. We only require one visit a month. But that one visit is the most important thing, because you're going in the home making sure that the child has food to eat, a nice bed to sleep in. They look good, their demeanor's good. You know, in other words, you're taking care of them, making sure everything is good, and you're reporting that information to our system. And we have a unique system. It's called the Optima system. Get this microphone right eventually. And what it does is once you put that information in Optima, it allows our attorneys and our case managers to see everything that you've done throughout that time. So that way we can make sure everybody's on the same page when they go to court.
And a guardian, I think an important role that they play is they're kind of an anchor in that child's life, because you hear in foster care about kids being moved from home to home. And how many different places over the course of a couple years that a child could have. But a guardian would follow that child and really be a voice of consistency in what's a otherwise kind of unknown, you know, set of circumstances.
Right, absolutely. You know, you'll follow the child like just like you're a part of their family. You know, and they do become a part of your lives. So if the child is removed from their home or they're going somewhere else, you follow them, and you know, and you're making sure that their living arrangements are good and that they're in good shape and that they're taken care of and well taken care of.
Yeah, it's almost like the way I think of it, it's almost like a big brothers, big sisters kind of an opportunity. You know, you have these minimum requirements, but there's more that you can do. But then your voice just to be, you know, heard in court is really, really important. Share with us something great that's happened.
Wow. We have unlimited things that happen all the time, great things that happen with our program, but this last one was very touching to me and everybody else on our circuit. I can recall very recently one of the children that was in our system. She ended up, she was a child that was in our program for a numerous amount of years, and she went from place to place to place to place. And she finally aged out of the system. And once she aged out, she became a guardian ad litem. She became one of our guardian ad litems. So she ended up giving back to our program, you know, which had helped her over the years. And I can tell you, she's a very successful lady, awesome, and she's doing wonderful things. And she actually just started, so we're very happy about that.
That's cool. That's a great one. Well, so we've talked foster, adopt, advocate, and these are kind of, you know, progressions of involvement and time commitment and all that kind of stuff. But there are a lot of ways that you can help also, just maybe an hour a week or an hour a month, whatever time you have. Maybe it's resources. So Nicole from the Twig is going to come up, and she's going to share about their really just niche project and what they do to support kids in foster care and how you might be able to help. So Nicole, welcome, and tell us just a little bit about you and the Twig.
Sure. So I'm Nicole Britton. I am the Director of Development at the Twig. We are located down in Venice, and we serve as a resource for the foster families. So we talked about when children are removed, they may have been in Manatee County and they're going to be moved down to Sarasota County. So not only are they leaving their house, they may be leaving their school, they usually have to leave their belongings as well. So when they come into foster care, a lot of times they're just wearing the clothes on their back. So we're here to meet that need for them. We have a boutique where they can shop completely free of charge for clothing, shoes, underwear, socks, accessories, books. But we're also there to really pour love into them and just fill them with encouragement and help boost their self-esteem. So when they are starting that new school, they feel like they fit in with their peers and they can feel confident about themselves.
Yeah, so I think the thing I love about the Twig is just the dignity that you offer. You know, I mean, clothing can be found. We have, you know, Goodwill stores, and we have hand-me-downs, and, you know, it's not so much about the material need, although that certainly helps. Mm-hmm. But, you know, your store is beautiful. You have dressing rooms, you have shopping attendants. It's just really well done. So if someone has a child who's in foster care and they have a need, like what's kind of the next step? Or if someone wants to volunteer or help, what would you say to them?
So our shopping days are every Saturday from 9 to 1, and we welcome all families who have a child in foster care to come in during that time, whether it's a newborn up through an 18-year-old, even those youth that have aged out of foster care, they're welcome to come in as well. Excuse me. So we don't require them to make an appointment because we know these families have so many appointments that they have to go to. They can just come in anytime. They're welcome to come once a month, every single month while that child's in care. And we have volunteers there that are just going to hang out with them. They're going to talk with them. They're also going to help them, like she said, find that dignity of choosing their own clothing items. We're not just giving them clothes to cover their bodies. We're really letting them find what they like. We have our dressing rooms where they can try things on. All of our clothing has its own tags on it that have words of encouragement. We have paper bags, not plastic, to not remind them of any trauma of maybe packing that trash bag when they had to leave their house. Those bags have words of encouragement on them as well. Those really follow them out our doors. So we encourage any foster families, you can just pop in on those Saturdays that we're open. You can also go to our website and register there. We do have a volunteer base of about 200 people, which is fantastic. We have so many of them we utilize in so many different ways. So at this time, we're not really needing new volunteers, but what we'd love is to have people just be kind of an advocate for us out in their communities. So maybe your church wants to help and you can run an underwear collection for us. Undie Sunday is a really fun way to do that. We have different social groups and community organizations that will hold shoe drives for us. And it's a great way for people to feel like they're making a difference in what seems like a small way, but will make a really big impact on these children.
There's even, I think you keep an Amazon wish list going. So if people want to buy new clothing to donate, you keep that updated with what the most current needs are.
Correct.
And you accept used as well, as long as it's in great condition. And
Yeah. So we try to make everything look new, even if it's not. So again, those matching hangers and our own tags on everything. We want the kids to feel like they're getting something new just for them, not just someone's hand-me-downs. But that being said, we do accept used clothes if they're in really good condition. We have a donation drop-off day once a month. It's the fourth Monday of every month, so this coming Monday from 4 to 6 p.m. And again, on our website, we do have a wish list of our biggest needs, but really anything for a child from a newborn up through adult plus sizes, as long as it's a style that a teenager would wear, we can use it all.
so tell us a feel-good story. I know you have a lot of them.
We do have a lot. So I think one of the things that touched me the most is, yes, we're giving them clothes and we're pouring into them while we're there, but it's the space that we have that's really a vital part of what we do too. It's a place where they know they belong. We write every child's name up on our wall. They come in, they find their name, and they just feel like this community cares about them. There's enough value that their name is listed on that wall. And there's a lot of really special moments. So one time I was there on a shopping day. I helped this little boy shop. We went in the play area and we were just hanging out. And all of a sudden he looked up at the front door and he said, "There's my sister." So they were in two separate homes. This was not planned. They happened to show up on the same day. So these two got to sit at a table and color for an hour together and spend some special time together while getting their needs met. It's just amazing when those things happen in that space.
And I've heard you talk too about the Twig kind of being an anchor, as kids bounce around or they have different placements or, that they can kind of keep coming back. Those anchors are just really important in the life of a child who's experiencing a lot of transition.
Yeah, and that's a really cool part too. Our volunteers get to know the kids and they know when they come in, hey, I know that you like this style of clothing. Let's go see what we can find. And even if all these things are happening outside of there and they're moving homes and all these things are happening, when they come in, they can kind of forget about that for a little while and just be loved on.
And then again, just the control of choosing their clothing and, empowering in little ways like that. So that's great. Thanks for sharing. Well, the last organization I get to share about is Bridge a Life, and I have the privilege of working with Bridge a Life, and we do support as well in a little bit different way than what the Twig does. First of all, we do awareness events like this, and the Superhero 5K, which is coming up next month in February. That's our big foster care awareness race out at Nathan Benderson Park. So if you are a runner or a walker or know someone who is, that's a great way just to show up on a Saturday with some friends from work or your neighborhood and just walk or run in support of kids who are in foster care. A lot of our agencies are there to answer questions, and it's just a great family day. There's a kiddie zone and music and food, and we try to take a really big, heavy community issue and break it down and make it tangible and kind of like this, help people figure out ways that they can be a part. One of the things I love about the race is we have a local chalk artist who comes and she writes the name of every single child who's in foster care at that time at the start-finish line in this giant, colorful, really fun font. And so just as a reminder, those runners, as they take off, we're doing this for a reason for these kids. They have a name, they have a face, they have a story, and we can be a part of that. So Bridge a Life raises awareness. But then we also realize that when families say yes to foster care and adoption, that doesn't solve the problem. We still have court appointments and guardian ad litem appointments and therapy, and there are behaviors, and there are just a lot of demands. I say that, parenting is hard, but parenting kids who come with a trauma background, you need additional tools in your parenting toolbox. So Bridge Life offers a monthly training, and we engage volunteers to help with childcare. We want our trainings to be really accessible and easy for families, so they're free. We provide a great dinner, and we offer childcare. And so if you're like, I really want to be involved with a kid, but I don't know that I'm really ready to open up my home, but I could do a 2-hour childcare for a training. This church that we're in right now, tonight they're hosting a foster and adoptive parent night out. So we'll have about 70 kids here tonight for 3 or 4 hours, so that their caregivers can just have a free date night, and they know that their child is in a safe place with volunteers who have been trained, and they can go and just enjoy a night out. So Bridge of Life partners with churches and other organizations to provide those free childcare events. We do hammer time projects. So if you know people who are handy, a lot of times it's just cleaning and organizing, but it can be putting together a bunk bed or a bathroom renovation or painting a bedroom. There are certain things that when you become licensed or when you accept a new child into your home, you have different needs. And so we engage volunteers who can help just go into the homes and meet those needs. We do a ladies' night out for foster and adoptive families and relative and non-relative caregivers. So again, just saying, hey, we know that your family is unique, your needs are different, and so we want to provide opportunities for you to get around a table once a month with other women who kind of get where you're at in your journey. So, even if you're not going to foster or adopt today, you probably know someone who is or has, and so we just want you to know that there are support services for those families. We don't want anyone to be walking this journey alone. We want to be able to step alongside and help. And so even today as we sit here, there's a church that's helping a grandma that she's willing to take care of this kiddo. She had just moved here. She didn't have any furnishings. You have to have a dining room table if you're going to there are all these licensing requirements. Like, we want kids to move into homes that feel like a home. And so over the last couple of weeks, Bridge of Life was able to get donated furnishings from a variety of different people, and then coordinate a group today who got a big truck and a trailer, and they're going around town picking up all the pieces of furniture that this lady needs, because she's willing to say yes. She wants to provide quality care. She just needs a little bit of help to get there. And so that's kind of what we're all about. And so I appreciate being able to partner with all of these agencies. It's like, you know what, the Twig is doing clothing really well. Bridge of Life doesn't have to do that, and One More Child, they're licensing Christ-based homes, so we don't have to worry about that. And so we can just kind of share this load, and there are so many others that are doing amazing work in our community. And so it's not a matter of like, we want you to volunteer with us. It's like, we want kids to be in safe places, and wherever you feel like you fit, we want to encourage you in that journey. So we're here for the next few minutes. Are there any questions? And, we're going to be out at the table too. I know sometimes you'd rather just ask one-on-one. That's fine as well. But it's a lot of information. Child welfare and the complexities of the system can be really overwhelming. We hope we gave you kind of a big picture view of what it looks like, but maybe there's something that we overlooked and you'd like to ask. So we want to allow space for that. Or maybe there's something that you're like, I meant to say this and I didn't. Okay. Well, we'll hang around. We'll be out at our tables. There's all kind of information that you can pick up. And, if nothing else today, you just go out more informed and you can be an advocate in our community for kids that need it, then that's a win. So thanks for being here, and we look forward to connecting with you.